There are many places on a computer that you can find evidence related to a case. In email, deleted files, documents. In many cases, one of the most important places that evidence can be found is in the web browsing history, and that's what we'll talk about today. So web browsers have been around since about 1993, and there's actually dozens of different types of web browsers, some of which are consistent across multiple operating systems or which are available across multiple operating systems, and some which are unique to a certain type of device. For example, there's certain web browsers that are unique to, for example, smartphones. But as you see on the screen, there are many web browsers from which you can choose. Internet Explorer, Firefox, and Chrome are very popular web browsers. Opera, Safari, and so on. Now, as you know, or as you may not know, the data structures used to organize the information are different on different browsers. And they may even change from one version of a browser to another. Now, this makes it difficult from a forensic standpoint because you need usually a tool to read those data structures. And if a tool is built for a particular organizational data structure and then that data structure changes, that tool may no longer work or even worse, may work incorrectly. So what we'll do is we'll look at a couple of tools for a couple of different browsers today. We'll concentrate on Firefox and on Internet Explorer and show you the organizational data structures or how the data is organized on each of those web browsers. And realize that there are commercial forensic tool suites that will parse the different web browsing data for you. And then there's free and open source tools that are available, but we'll go over a couple of the free and open source tools which are pretty neat. So from an evidentiary standpoint, what might we be interested in web browsing? Well, there's the browser history, which by default is kept by the web browser to show where the user has browsed in the recent past. There's also the cache, which holds recently viewed pages, which allows the web browser to serve up those pages more quickly rather than re-downloading them. And there's also downloaded files. But there's other types of evidence, as we'll see shortly, which you can use to confirm even perhaps a user's intent in visiting a particular page. Let's first talk about Mozilla Firefox. As you can see on the screen, is that the files of evidentiary value are kept in different places depending upon, as I said earlier, the operating system. As you can see on here, I'm not going to go through all of it, but in Windows XP it differs from Windows Vista 7 and 8, although it's consistent across the latter three. Notice this XXX series of X's in here is a randomly generated string which is used to identify the user, and this is where their default settings and profiles and cache are kept on each of the operating systems. Notice on Linux, this occurs in a hidden file, in a hidden directory rather. It's still got the same multiple X format. As we'll see shortly, I'll show you what an actual user profile name looks like. And on Mac OS X, it's even kept in a different location. And just working under Mint, if we run the program tree, this is my default profile for my account under Mint 14, but you can see that it's giph43fl.default. So this will be my default profile, and this is not all the files that we found under the profiles directory, which would be in here. And by the way, I'm showing this with a tree command, and that's something that you can install too, is it just gives you a graphical kind of view of the directory structures and file underneath, which is kind of handy for situations like this. But notice one thing in here is that there are a lot of SQLite SQLite files, which is a database program. And so these are actually databases. Now, not all web browsers keep the browser information in databases, but Firefox is one of those. And we'll go over these in more detail shortly. There's also the bookmarks here, and then we have backups of the copies of the bookmarks on certain dates. So the Firefox cache contains metadata and data which can be of immense importance from a forensic standpoint, and this just shows you here. I'm not going to go over all of them, but where that information is kept. For some of the later versions of Firefox, we have the cache, the jump list cache, offline cache, and startup cache. And as you see here, there are 4 primary internal files that hold different types of cache information. Cache 001, 2, 3, and the cache map. And where this cache is stored, where the item is stored, depends upon how large the metadata and data entries are. So the larger ones are kept in cache 3. And finally, cache map contains the index to both the metadata and the data and items, linking them together. And so a working copy is stored in memory when Firefox is running, while the other cache files are continuously updated during web browsing. But something that's really cool about Firefox is you can see very easily what you have in cache. And we'll go to the next page. As you probably already aware, is that there's a way to access a lot of the attributes of Firefox right from the address bar. And if we open up Firefox, and we'll do this right here, Firefox cache. And so what this tells you is what you've actually got in memory right now, the number of entries. Notice that more information is written out to the disk on the disk cache device. And then you have the offline cache device. But let's look at the list memory cache device first. And you see the only thing that they've got running in RAM right now is the starting page. But it tells you the data size, the fetch count, when it was last modified, and when this expires, which is interestingly, it expires if you, in the past, but what this is really saying that this expires at the Unix epoch, which is January 1st of 1970. I'm not sure why it's showing that, but let's take a look over here. The disk cache will always have more information unless you clean it out. And the memory cache, and this just holds the older items, and notice that it indicates exactly where the cache is displayed or where the files are kept, the information is kept. And notice here's that 8-digit string that indicates what the default name for my account is on here. And we'll click that and take a look. And what this shows us is all the different places that I have visited in the past. Notice the number of times that each one of these has been fetched up here, the date it was last modified, and when it expires. Notice some of these are indicating the Unix epoch, which should mean that it doesn't expire. And then we have some that actually indicate a date and time that this link will expire. Let's go back over here. And so the only issue with this, if I want this can be used with your running browser to identify what's currently in memory cache and disk cache and offline cache. That is files that you've saved for later use. However, it's not going to do any good if you've got an image of a computer and you need to access all the relevant evidence from the web browsing history. But I'll show you how to do that shortly. So As I indicated previously, that Firefox keeps all of the web information in an SQLite relational database management system. In a lot of other applications, information can be kept in the Windows registry, but instead it's kept in two different places in user accounts, and you see these locations here, and in this account. So you have the profiles directory and then the profile name .default, and the previous one you saw is the actual cache, which is what we were looking at just shortly previously. Okay, so I also indicated before that the locations and types of files can change from one version, from one web browser to another, and also from perhaps even from version to version. So here we're only looking at Mozilla Firefox 16.0.2, and the current version that I'm using here is, let's see if I can find it, is version 19. So as we'll see shortly, is the tool I'm going to be using to browse through the web browsing history. It actually still works on 3 later versions of Firefox. Okay, so typically web browsing history, by web browsing history, it just doesn't mean the pages you visited, but preferences and passwords and things like that are kept in 12 SQLite databases, each of which performs a different function, such as storing bookmarks, cookies, places visited, searches, and so on. And this shows you the list right here. So you've got the add-ons, and I'm sure everybody knows what add-ons are. They are called extensions in Chrome. They're little utilities that you can add to your web browser to increase the functionality. Chrome App Store, your preferences. Cookies are small text files that have been added by websites so they can try to track you and to hold information, to provide a semblance of continuity from visiting the site from one time to another. What you've downloaded, the extensions that you use, what form history, if you've previously filled out a form, is that the web browser can save that information. The permissions for different sites, the places, this would be your web history right here, where you've searched in previous browsing activity, where you've signed on, and this would include passwords and usernames for particular sites, and the web app store. So how do you access all that information, especially if you don't have a forensics tool that's capable of doing that? Well, there's something, a little add-on that we can include in Firefox that will allow us to do that, and it's called SQLite Manager. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop over here to our virtual machine and make it fit in here. And we can go to add-ons, and if we type SQLite Manager in here, now unfortunately or fortunately I've already got this installed, so it might not show up. It's not going to show up here, but as we saw here, this is what it looks like when you type in SQLite Manager in the add-ons, and you just click here on the right to install it, and what you end up getting is this new addition to the tools menu, the SQLite Manager, which just simply allows you to look at those SQLite files. We're going to hit cancel here because this was something I was previously looking at. Let's make this a little larger. Now I'm running in a VM, and what I've done is a lot of the work I've done previously to make sure everything was working. Is I had an image of a Windows XP image, and I have mounted it on this directory right here. I mounted it read-only. Notice right here. And so I can access the contents of the image without fear of writing over anything because I have mounted it read-only. But you see here is that if you're familiar with Windows XP, is those are the files and directories that are common to the Windows XP. Now what we want to do is to copy off the default profile, which would include all of these SQLite files. And if we hop back over here, I'll show you where you can find those. So, one more. There we go. So what we want to do is we want to go here and copy off that default profile, which would also give us our SQLite database files. And we want to keep that open. And so what we need to do is go to Documents and Settings. And now I happen to know that the user of interest is this person named Hacksaw. So we're going to go to that directory, then Application Data, and then we see Mozilla, and it should be Firefox, and Profiles. Now let's see what we've got in here. And that's the only user for this account. That's the default. So what we can do is we can copy that. Notice the -R for recursive, so that gets everything. And we're going to put that in our evidence directory. Let's go back to our evidence directory and make sure that's there. And so there's our evidence. Now what we need to do is we need to open up, we need to point, there's directory, I click here, select default directory. I want to point it here and click open. I don't know if you can see that. Let me cancel this, move this up so you can see it. Directory, select default directory. There it is right there. Now I tried to do this while it was mounted in read-only form, and it wouldn't allow me to view the any of the SQLite files, so that's why we had to copy it here. We click open, and we go to select database and default directory, and we see here is that we have quite a few SQLite databases to look at. So let's look at let's just look at the first one, downloads. And we got to click go here, and it looks like nothing has been downloaded. Let's go to cookies and see what we've got here. Cookies. Here we go. So this tells us something about the cookies that have been placed on the system, where this person was. So cookies is a repository of every cookie that has been set by the system, and they may or may not be fully cleaned out when a user deletes all cookies or when you use a cookie eraser program, but you can see that there's quite a few here. And notice that some of these are ads based upon the ad system. So Amazon and doubleclick.net or advertising, ads on our advertising.com. There can be a problem with interpreting the intent of a user just because there is a cookie from a particular spot doesn't necessarily mean that the user actually visited that spot intentionally. Some sites set many tracking cookies as well as tracking cookies for advertising, other sites, audio or video streams, or even the random adult site. So a cookie being set does not mean that a user went there. You have to understand how cookies, advertising, and user tracking works before you can make the assumption that a user visited a particular site. And so, but that does give us some information, just the fact that there's a cookie there, and we can use that with other information we may find, for example, in the browser history, to try to triangulate to determine a user's whether they intentionally visited a site. And if we look over here on the expiration date, last accessed, and the date it was created, these are offsets from the Unix epoch, which is really the way that all Unix-based, which is how many different systems work, is working off the offset from the Unix epoch. And so in order to translate those into a date and timestamp, you would need to do that algorithmically. And there's actually a website, and I can't remember the name of it, but if you look at the Unix epoch, and you can copy and paste this in right here, copy and paste that in, and it will convert that for you and tell you what the last date and time were. And this is the actual web browsing history, and we'll see some of the places they visited and some of the things that they downloaded. Now, Places is a database of places visited, bookmarks, and attributes for those sites commonly visited by the browser. This is where the web browser history comes into place, which allows you to pull the entire web history for a user. This includes bookmarks, bookmark properties, favorite icons, and a lot of other information. You know, as you see over here, I'm only pulling this from one particular spot. So if we go down to the database and look at other information, notice here is that these are going to be the bookmarks, favorite icons, where those are pulled from. So what's interesting about this is that apparently this is showing files that were downloaded from a particular site and where they ended up on the hard drive. As you can see, John 179 W2 zip, John the Ripper, Cain and Abel, pictures of kitties, and eraser. So this looks like a bunch of hacking stuff and a kitty lover. Now, if we move down to Mozilla Places, is where we can find where they downloaded the information from. So these are showing some of the sites that were visited. And if you actually look in here, you can see some of the, for example, here's a Google search for password cracking. Password cracking Cain and Abel, where the file was downloaded from, and the fact that this person visited Slashdot. And here there's another Google search for pastebin plus password hashes, and they downloaded some kitty pictures and eraser, and they searched for stolen credit cards. How about that? So that's a hacker. So we can take this and we can export this to an Excel spreadsheet, and then take the other SQLite databases and export those as well, and then look at the dates and times. If we scroll over here to determine whether if a cookie was placed, and we can correlate that with the date and timestamp for the web browsing history to determine whether a person intentionally visited a website or not. So you can't always go by the cookies. Okay, let's go to search. And this does not have search, which is interesting. So again, this is version 19 of Mozilla Firefox. But what we can do is when we look through here, even though we don't have the search SQLite database, is we did see in here that some of the Google searches were actually showing up for password cracking and credit cards and so on. Let's go to sign on, see if they signed in anywhere. And unfortunately, it looks like they didn't sign in anywhere, but that's okay. I've got a couple of pictures that I can show you. Nope. Okay, so let's go back over here and I'll show you what some of the here's places.sqlite again. This just shows you some of the content that was downloaded, and we saw how if we go to Moz Places over here on the left, is that we can see the actual download where they downloaded the file from. Even though in the previous example, let me see over here. If we go to, well, that's Chrome. If we go to Firefox, and I've installed it here. Now I'm running this on my Mac. Let's see if I've got any here, search. Let's see if I've searched for anything. And well, as it turns out, under Mozilla, I haven't searched for anything. I guess because I use Chrome most often. Places. Here's just some of the files that have been downloaded and where they were downloaded to. And if we want to find where they were downloaded from, we can correlate that over here. Here we go. So this is part of the web browsing history. Apparently I went to Amazon, Facebook, Apple. I downloaded Adobe Player and a lot on the D2L site. And if we want to look at notice at the last visited, how frequently I visited. It's quite a few times. And the date of the last visit. And let's go to search, because we didn't see anything in that before. And apparently I don't use the search engine much. Used Google XML once. Sign-ons. Let's go take a look at that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so where I've signed in with Firefox, and I've asked it to save my username and password, and really there was only one site, is the online DaytonaState.edu. And notice it has fields for username and password, and notice, if I can make this any larger, is that these are encrypted. Both the password and the username are encrypted. And if we move on over, the time created, the time last used, again that's an offset from the epoch, and the time the password was changed. So it looked like I set it and last used it and changed the password all at the same date, because those are all the same offsets from the Unix epoch. And the permissions is the history of what the site has with which permissions, like allowing or not allowing pop-ups, or sites that have linked shopping credentials. Sometimes this file will be full of data, or sometimes it will not be, and as you can see here, it's not full of anything. So let's go back over here, and this is running on my Mac now, and let's see if there's anything in permissions. And unfortunately there is nothing in permissions. So as I said, sometimes it's full of data and sometimes it's not. So what this lecture did was just briefly go over web browsing history, how to access very easily web browsing data with Mozilla Firefox. In our next lecture, we will talk about Internet Explorer.